Welcome to Stories from the River, episode 371. I'm Heather Greenwood, and I'm excited to join you today with a very special episode about being a light.
Welcome to Stories from the River, a show in which we go behind the scenes at Broad River Retail.
Welcome to Stories from the River. I'm Heather. Welcome back to our friends at home and listening. And today I'm joined by a very special guest to talk about something really close to our heart. So Emmeline Henderson is our Senior Manager of Experience and Events. Welcome back, Emmeline.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
New digs for us. We haven't been in the studio yet, so welcome to the studio, which we were just reminiscing about back in the day when this was our break room.
I know. We used to have lunch in here when we all sat upstairs in 2018 when I was an intern. I remember we would all gather in the break room and eat lunch in here. Now it's broadcast studio.
Amazing how times change. So not too long ago, we were on Stories from the River with our friend Tim, and we were talking about the Lighthouse Fund. Mm-hmm. Now, we actually just celebrated our 1-year anniversary of the Lighthouse Fund. Hard to believe the year flew by. Mm-hmm. So July 17th, 1 year ago, we would have had a surprise Zoom call. We would have surprised all of our memory makers with the fund. And now 1 year later, so tell us a little bit about that year, Emmeline. What has happened with the fund, with our participants? I know you have some great numbers you want to share. Tell us a little bit about the Lighthouse Fund.
Yeah, so over the past year, it's really been a big learning for us too. Going into launching the Lighthouse Fund, there was a lot of research that we did, partners that we met with, just to learn about how it's worked for them as they run similar programs. But even then, even with all of our preparation, there was still so much learning. I think going into it, we didn't know what to expect in regards to how many people were actually going to need it, or what the feedback or support was going to be like from our memory makers. And I think what we got back was so much more than we expected. I think that immediately after the launch, there was just so much excitement around it, people that wanted to participate and wanted to support the fund. And then throughout the year, we've actually been able to help 99 memory makers with different crises that they're going through, whether that be, a house fire, and having to kind of rebuild or, reestablish their living situation. Different medical emergencies that they've needed support with. We've been able to be there through the Lighthouse Fund. And this year with the Lighthouse Fund, we've been able to help those 99 memory makers and distribute almost $140,000 through the fund.
That's amazing. Mm-hmm. I think back to those times, going to Movement Mortgage and RLX, Riverstone Logistics, and not really knowing what would happen at Broad River. What do you have goals? You can't have goals. You don't really know what to expect. So to think about 99 people, 99 families who are better because of the Lighthouse Fund today, and kind of the effect or the ripple effect that has had is really, truly remarkable. So congratulations to you, to the whole team that put together the Lighthouse Fund. It's amazing to think what will come in the next year, 3 years, 5 years from the Lighthouse Fund. Mm-hmm. So you referenced kind of this learning. I think we both have had a lot of ahas over the past year. Mm-hmm. We faced some unknowns throughout the fund and some things we didn't expect. We've had great partners with Helping Hands. Mm-hmm. But what were some of your biggest takeaways or your biggest learning moments throughout the year with the Lighthouse Fund?
So the Lighthouse Fund is very confidential. We work through a third-party partner, Helping Hands. And something that I think surprised me was just their attention and care for every single memory maker. They have gone above and beyond to do what they can to support our memory makers when they need it. Something else is that, with it being confidential, we don't see a lot of the information or details that come through. But Helping Hands will share with us stories of, people and how they've been supported, not their names, but, what they've been supported with. And they'll share that with us. And then also when people are looking for the Lighthouse Fund and they're like, how do I apply? They come to my team to say, where can I get this information? And so just the stories that I think we've heard this year have really shocked and surprised me, and I think humbled me in a way. to hear some of the things that our memory makers are going through. And I'll say that the last thing that is never like an expectation of ours. We kind of invited people to give to the fund, but the way our memory makers show up and continue to show up, we have almost 17%, over 17% of our population that is contributing back into the fund, which was never, I think, expected. I think we were hoping for like 5-10%, and like our memory makers just continue to like show up and show out and give more than we expect. So
really incredible. I think in talking and doing our homework, we had learned about 10% is probably average of a company to give back through payroll deduction. So to be at over 17 again, again, with not really any idea what could be, but just asking. I think we've learned time and time again, our memory makers always show up. And then I just think about the stories too. As you and I were chatting earlier today, talking about, recently in Retail 101, having someone just kind of approach me very casually and tell me about a life situation that was really weighing on him. And when I mentioned the Lighthouse Fund, it wasn't something he had thought of. He, went through all the, I'm not eligible, or I don't know, but ended up being able to get some help from the Lighthouse Fund. So as we continue to talk about it and put awareness towards it, again, just imagine what it could do. So a lot of learning. So leading up to the anniversary, of course, we love to celebrate, we love events, we love to recognize things. We knew we wanted to do something. We weren't sure what that was. Again, it was just kind of this rumble, a thought. So tell us about, where did this idea or this light bulb come from around what then became Be a Light Day?
Yeah, I think it's funny because we were actually in the midst of our VIP Summit, which was a new event for us this year. So that was a lot of learnings too. And we were running around for 3 days, and like we finally got a moment to sit down and just chat, which we don't often get to do. And we started talking about, okay, what opportunities do we have upcoming? How can we continue to message and celebrate and commemorate the Lighthouse Fund? And so we thought of kind of a day of celebration, and then some way infusing service into that to highlight the vision of the Lighthouse Fund. And so we just started chatting and then brainstorming a million different ideas of what's possible. We had to pull back some because sometimes we go a little too big. But it was really just about commemorating, celebrating 1 year of the fund.
I think that the light behind it and that aha moment is sometimes in our world, we do the same thing, right? The same event, and we get really good at it, right? But I think we were looking for something a little bit different too, and in a moment of maybe being a little bit too tired and a little bit over caffeinated, that's when the sparks really start to fly. And I remember that conversation that day in the lobby. And I remember kind of having this, even this laugh like, oh, I don't know if we can do that. But then being so excited about the idea. I remember telling Jocelyn about it that night, like, I shouldn't tell you, but we have this idea and we don't know if it's going to come to life, but just being so excited about it being something new and different and really what it celebrates. When you went on to present it to Manny and Jocelyn as our executive sponsors, you really showcased, what do we recognize today? What types of celebrations? What are those moments? But really pausing to celebrate community and service. Something a little bit different than we normally do in our day-to-day. So when you think about that, Be a Light Day wasn't just a day, it was a week. And I know it was really important to you and Debbie that it be a week. So tell us a little bit about the days leading up to Be a Light Day.
When we launched the Lighthouse Fund last year, you and I and a team of leaders, Jocelyn, Tim, and Kim, really spent a lot of hours talking about what we wanted the fund to mean and represent for our memory makers. And we developed a vision for the fund at that time. And our vision for the fund is to be a light in the lives of everyone we serve. And for us, this fund was really about serving our memory makers and how serving our memory makers really creates a ripple effect and impacts not only them, but their families, their communities, their children, their friends. And so for us, being a light is about serving others and to represent and commemorate Be a Light Day or the 1 year, we really wanted our memory makers to get active in our communities. And so we looked to the partners that we generally partner with, like our partners in Hope to Dream with Beds for Kids. Julia was able to share their contact information with me. And so we just reached out and said, hey, is there anything in this week time frame that we could do to support you? And so through that, we partnered with 9 different organizations, actually. Kind of reached out to some that we hadn't partnered with in the past too. And that week, our memory makers moved furniture, they cleaned dog kennels, they washed buses at the Boys and Girls Club. We made sandwiches for people in our community experiencing housing insecurity. And it was just a really good week that felt good. Memory makers wanted to get involved. We even had a new memory maker, drive from Raleigh to Charlotte to partner with the animal care and control because they were so excited about it. So just to see that impact. And throughout the week, we had 56 memory makers volunteer, even with some of our corporate chaplains. So our corporate chaplains really showed up. I think like 10 of them volunteered with our memory makers. And through that, we served over 140 hours of our time.
It's really incredible. You know, people want these moments. They want to serve. They want to do good. And as the pictures were coming into our inbox that week, just made you feel good. You saw how happy people were. They were connecting. They were engaging. Again, whether it be animals, children, different members of our community, they really showed up in a meaningful way. And throughout the week, you were also sending kind of ideas that were no cost, no time. Right? So this is just about spreading joy and kindness. It's about walking by somebody and smiling at them at the grocery store or saying, I like your shirt today. And so those little nuggets too, sometimes it doesn't take time. It doesn't take money. It just is reminding ourselves in what can be a little bit of a tough and challenging world today that there is a lot that comes from a little joy, a little sprinkle, if you will. So super well done. We served all week, and then this kind of commenced on Friday, July 17th, with Be a Light Day. Again, it started as a little idea. What would it look like? Would it be outside? Would it be at a park? And it kind of grew over time into the event that was. So tell us a little bit about Be a Light Day.
Be a Light Day was really built to be celebratory. So the whole week was about service. This day was just about celebrating what we did together because this fund does not get built by one person, by one thought or idea. It's truly built through our memory makers in our community. And so this is also the first event we've had at Broad River where we've invited families. Like I said, it impacts so much more than just the memory maker. It impacts their children, their loved ones, their spouse, their families. And so we really thought it was important that their families get to come as well. So we had memory makers, their families. It was an outdoor event, and we actually held it at Ridge Church in Matthews, which coincidentally just like all came together so beautifully because they also work with Treetop Catering there, who we often work with, which we didn't know, and we started like scouting and looking, and so it all just kind of culminated perfectly to be the right location. We had bouncy houses, games, food, music, all of the things you need for a really fun day. And we celebrated together, and it was so great seeing memory makers and their kids and their families come out.
It was such a wonderful celebration. Again, the vision coming to life. Ridge Church had a beautiful spot for us. Thank you, of course, to our friend Tim Sales, who helped us with that connection. And then to the component that you mentioned, bringing in our families, being there that day and seeing people's loved ones experience it with them. You know, we're both moms, and so to have our kids there and experience, you know, my kids still don't know what I do to this day or understand it, but to be there, to enjoy each other's company, people they never met. Of course, our friend Rebecca was doing face painting for all the kids. We had an ice cream truck. It was super hot. So we did our best with fans and little mini sprayers to really, you know, ease the heat. But it didn't matter because everybody was just connecting and having fun and enjoying the moment. I would say we probably ended around 90 to 100 people in attendance. So that was really special too. And you had people who generally work remote or work from home. You had people from different regions of our company. You had retail, you had operations, you had corporate employees, CX. So it just felt good to come together and celebrate. As we were building it, we knew this wasn't a budgeted event or something we had thought of before and set aside money for. So we went and we talked to a few other people that we thought might be interested in what we were doing. So we had a few really, really good people raise their hands to help us and to make this event possible. So tell us about the partners that came alongside of us.
I think first we, really need to send a shout out to Tim Sales and Jocelyn Jones. We were talking to Tim and he's like, we're talking about the cost and what it was going to be like. And he was like, there's like a lot of people that would want to help. Like there's so many people, partners that we have that like would want to be a part of this. And we kind of was like a light bulb moment and talked to Jocelyn about it. And she really encouraged us to dig a little deeper. And so these partners, as soon as we asked, it was a yes. Like there wasn't even, a blink of an eye. So Kirby's and Nelson and Corporate Chaplains were two sponsors of this event. Again, Corporate Chaplains showed up to volunteer with us that week. They both gave because they really believe in the vision of the Lighthouse Fund and what we're doing with it. And then we also had some partners that were able to donate a few items to us. So Canteen, who we work with for all of our vending needs, donated the sodas for the event. Treetop Catering donated some food and treats. And then also Artistic Embroidery, who we partner with, they were able to make us these really great little Be a Light cups for our memory makers to take with them and just have some extra swag.
It was really awesome the way that these partners reacted, right? No hesitation. What can I do? How can I show up? I even think about Corporate Chaplains just not sponsoring the event, but coming alongside. Stephen joining us to make sandwiches that week and seeing the chaplain's presence out alongside our memory makers. These partners, they're all truly incredible, and Broad River is so thankful for them. But to see them show up in this way, Be a Light Day, again, it really an internal event to Broad River, but knowing that it's so much bigger than that and really what the vision of the Lighthouse Fund is. When you think back on that day, do you have a favorite moment, the day, the week, something that really stood out to you or makes you feel really good today, thinking back on it?
Yeah, I think my favorite thing, which we already talked about it, but was just getting to see people's families. Like, I just loved that they were there. I loved meeting them. Bree and I talk about her boys all the time, but I've never got to meet them in person. And so them just being there, I think, was so special. And then the week, I just think how people show up, how our corporate chaplain showed up, all of the pictures we get. We do a lot of things at Broad River and we always ask for pictures. And this is the one where people wanted to share their photos and wanted to show that they were a part of it. And so that was exciting.
It was a really fun day. My kids did ask me when the next one is. So, you get a bounce house and they're there. Yeah. So they love that. So when you think ahead, and I know, we just finished 1 year, but what do you see as the future for the Lighthouse Fund? Again, we've learned so much. We've experienced some things. We've done some things right. We've done some things wrong along the way. What do you see? What is to come from the Lighthouse Fund?
I think one of the most beautiful things about the fund is that it really comes from the heart of our leaders. And so Charlie and Manny, I think, really foundational for this. They want something like this to support our memory makers. And so I think that over time, the fund's not going anywhere. I think that it is here, it's staying, it's for our memory makers. And I think too that as we continue to talk about it and see it impact our memory makers, we'll see more people engage with it. I'm excited to see the trajectory of how it, impacts people and changes lives, because that one moment of support can change so much for someone. It can help them, get a roof over their heads, get established, maintain, their time with Broad River. And so I think that it's going to continue to grow and impact our people in a really positive way.
The heart of the program is right. Everything we do at Broad River is for our people. what we do for our memory makers. And it's not just here in these four walls, it's what goes home at night, how they get to spend their time with their loved ones. And we all know that when you come to work with a little bit of a weight or a little bit of a worry about paying that bill or having to see a doctor, going through a crisis, how that feels. And you can't focus and you can't be your whole self. So to be able to come alongside our memory makers with programs like this one and others in our Memory Makers Helping Memory Makers initiative is so special. You mentioned it earlier, but I do want to give another shout out to Helping Hands. As we've learned, they've learned. And I think about Lainey, who we only know across the computer, right? But I feel like she's our best friend. And she navigates things with us, you know, and she'll talk to us if she's unsure about a situation. Again, always remaining so professional and confidential. But hey, you know, something new came up. How does this impact your current guidelines around the program? So she's been incredible. To Juliana and Ashley, who joined us from Helping Hands at our event last week, thank you. We couldn't do it without Helping Hands. They make it so seamless for us. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you want to share with our audience today? Anyone else you'd like to thank or anything else that's on your heart?
I want to say also that Be a Light Day doesn't happen without a lot of people with a lot of muscle. And so to everyone who helped set up, take down, Debbie and Kaylee on our team did a lot of planning for it. The people allies showed up. Jay and Bryson helped us move a lot of heavy stuff to get the day prepared. So thank you to everyone who helped make that day possible and the week possible. And then also just, you know, if you're a memory maker that knows someone else is going through something where they could use support, talk about the fund, share about it. It's okay to ask for help. That's why it's there. And sometimes you just need that little nudge or that little reminder that something is there for you. I think we've seen a lot that people just don't think about it until they're in that moment of crisis. And then when you're in that moment of crisis, your mind is a million other places. So sometimes it just takes that little like, hey, have you heard about the Lighthouse Fund? Do you remember that this is a benefit and an option that you can use? And so I think just having people talk about it and utilize it and know that it's there for them is so important. So continue to talk about it and use it and ask questions if you need help.
I love it. I love it. Such a good resource for our people to have. Same sentiments, and I said this at Be a Light Day, but the Lighthouse Fund would not be possible without Charlie and Manny, Jocelyn, Tim, Kim, our friend Chrissy, you know, Emmeline, your support and growth of the program over the past year, before the year, right? All the work that went into it beforehand to make it a reality. These things don't happen overnight. These events don't happen out of thin air, although sometimes they look like they do. But to Kaylee, to Debbie, all the work that went into it. You know, I think about that day starting outside at 12 o'clock in 90-degree heat till the very, very end. I don't think I've ever sweat that much in my whole life. The very, very end, Michaela and Jocelyn standing with us till 8 o'clock at night, 8:30, taking down bounce houses. Just thank you to the Broad River community. Thank you to our memory makers for this opportunity. We look forward to lots of celebrations ahead, lots of moments that are special at home and at work. To our listeners and our audience, thank you for joining us today for Stories from the River. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to Stories from the River. To check out more episodes, visit storiesfromtheriver.com. To watch this episode, go to youtube.com/@storiesfromtheriver. Join us again next week, and remember to like, rate, and subscribe to the podcast.